Gartland Law presents Taxes, the IRS, and You with your host, Bernie Gartland. Taxes, the IRS, and You is a different kind of show that'll help you solve your tax problems. As former Deputy Attorney General of the state of Delaware, and with over 25 years of experience as sole practitioner in both Delaware and California, the name Bernie Gartland has become synonymous with taxes. And now your host, Bernie Gartland.
Hey everybody, Bernie Gartland. The name of the program is Taxes, the IRS, and You. We call it a different kind of show. And why do we call it a different kind of show? Because we originally started out with our radio show and our lectures and seminars on how to solve tax problems. And that has developed into other areas of continuing education expertise. From time to time, every Wednesday morning, we'll have here different consultants like Mike Wales from Paychecks, Bill Mayer, who is a spiritual and philosophical motivational speaker, Tim Berry, a tax attorney talking about wills and estates. And one of the things that we're going to talk about today with our resident panel member, Brian Bauer, who is the CFO of American Tax Centers, is we get a lot of people in here that are under audit from the Internal Revenue Service. And there's reasons they're under audit. And we're going to go into a lot of detail on how some of the people who prepared taxes are now being indicted, but the client is being audited. So I think the first thing to do is introduce you to our regular panel member, Brian Bauer. And we're going to go over the three types of audits that you normally would get involved in when you get audited. So, Brian, say hi to the folks out there.
How's everybody doing today?
Yeah, I hope they're doing well. I hope they're not getting audited. If they do get audited, they know where to come.
Right?
Yeah. All right. Now, you were an auditor with the state of California for over 20 years.
Correct.
In fact, it is. Here we go in the cross-examination that a lawyer. And isn't it true, Brian, that you and I used to do audits against each other?
That's true.
That's true.
That's how we met.
And that's how we met about 8, 9, 10 years ago. And as a result of that, I valued who you were. And at the proper point of time, I said, Brian, how about joining us at American Tax Centers and running it for us? Okay,
right.
which you did. In addition to doing all the tax preparation work, corporate, personal, partnership, you also handle all the audits that Gartland Law brings in to give to you to handle audits, mainly because you have the background in being an auditor.
Right.
All right.
I know what to look for.
So why don't we tell the folks out there the three types of audits that we normally get involved in so that at least they have some kind of frame of reference.
All right. Well, the first audit and what composes like 95% of the audits that someone's going to encounter is what's called a correspondence audit. And that's where you get a letter from the IRS basically stating, hey, we looked at your return, doesn't look like it's correct. That's usually what's called a CP2000. And usually that happens just because you inadvertently left something off. Or you file your tax returns, and after you file your tax returns, here comes an interest statement that you got $500 worth of interest, or here comes your brokerage statement that says, hey, remember you sold $1,000 in stock in January. You totally forgot about it. So on the CP2000, it basically says, here's the numbers that you filed. Here's the numbers that you left off. We're going to add that to the return. Here's the new amount you owe. And it's not a bill. It's basically a proposal. The IRS is saying, we think you owe this, and you have basically 30 days to respond to that. And if you disagree, if not, you just sign it and you send it in. They send you a bill, and of course you pay it.
And you know, there's so many people that panic when they see the CP2000.
All right, well, they panic anytime they see anything from the IRS, even before they open it.
That's true. And sometimes they bring in the letters and they say, I haven't opened it. Can you open it?
Yeah.
But a CP2000, what it does, it allows you to say, oh my goodness,
I forgot.
And I'm not oversimplifying. All the IRS is saying, this is what we think you may owe because you inadvertently forgot to put this in.
Right. If you agree, sign it.
Okay. And the reason for that is that they have information that you may have forgotten or you didn't get. But here's the other point. In that correspondence, it's going to show what they have received. Now, let's say, for instance, that And this happened to a client of 20 years ago in San Diego. I had an insurance guy that we do the tax work for, and all of a sudden we got a CP 2000 from some drywall company, a W-2, under his Social Security number from a drywall company. We got the CP 2000 and said, you did not include this in your tax return. Well, there was a reason for that. He's never done drywalling in his life. So it serves a really good purpose of helping people say, wait a minute, that's not me.
Right.
And by the way, there's a special form called an SS8 that you can file and say, you guys, you at the IRS, you need to investigate this because this is not me. So the CP 2000, nobody panic. All it is saying, we think you owe a little bit more because of this reason. And you always have the opportunity to say, no, I don't agree.
Right.
And you go from there. So the second type of audit is what?
Is an actual visit from, they either come to your business or they call you into the office,
okay.
and you have to bring in documentation.
Right.
They may tell you ahead of time, hey, I want to see the documentation for your cost of goods sold, legal and personal, or accounting expense, because
right.
they have your return.
Right.
And that entails you coming into the office and them going through all your records and them asking you questions, or it could entail them coming out to your business or a representative, like we have
right.
auditors
right.
come out here to
right.
for our office
right.
instead of the taxpayer's business.
And that's the third type of audit, is when they come out in the field. There are certain audits, like the second audit you're talking about, is that for the person that's assigned to the audit is not of the pay grade that they're allowed to come out of the IRS office.
Right.
That they want. They never tell you that, by the way. They never tell the person being audited, oh, by the way, I can't come out. You have to come down here.
Right.
Because they're not allowed to. But when you're in a higher pay grade, that third kind is the kind that you normally get involved in.
Right.
As a matter of fact, right here at this table, you've sat across from and gone on with the audit. And the audit takes time to do.
It does.
Because one of the things that I found out for doing 20, 30 years of audits also is that they always ask for something else. Once you give them one thing, and this is something that the client has to understand. This is normal. Expect it to be a project.
Right,
okay?
Because they may ask for something, they'll look at that, and
right.
that just leads them to question
right.
something else, and then you
right.
have to provide that documentation. And it's not because they're digging or they're out
right.
to get somebody, it's
right.
because, oh, okay, well, this doesn't look like, let me see your bank statements to see how much you deposited
right.
in your bank.
Right.
And then they'll ask for the bank statements.
Right.
And they'll look at that. And if there's differences between the bank statements and your income statement, then now you have to provide something else to explain why there's differences. And it may be because you have loans that you dumped in the bank and they're not
right.
really sales. Well,
right.
now you got to provide loan documents.
Right. And that's interesting, because when the bank records don't match what you put on your tax return, you better have an explanation of why that money is there. And a lot of folks, by the way, have a problem with what we call tracing. What tracing, I mean, is this. Business is going down the tubes. Mom and dad loan $15,000, and the guy puts in his business account.
It happens all the time.
It happens all the time. And you know what happens?
There's no paper trail.
There's no paper trail.
No paper
and the
trail.
IRS says if you can't show that this was in fact given to you by mom and dad,
right.
it's income.
It's income.
It's income. And I want to talk about CP 2000. I don't want to talk about, there's a kind of a quasi-fourth audit that is kind of like a paper audit, but not like a CP 2000.
Right.
And we're gonna take a little break now, and when we come back, we're going to talk about how CP 2000s got me to do the work that I'm doing today. I know that sounds crazy. How does CP 2000s get you to do tax problem solving? And when we get back from our crash, not to be confused with crash, self-serving commercial, we're going to talk about how you prepare the clients for the audit and what this other type of audit is and how CP 2000's got me to do tax problem solving. So this is Bernie Gartland. The name of the program is Taxes the IRS and You. Brian Bauer, who is the CFO of American Tax Centers, is on board. And as soon as we get back from the commercial, we're going to go further into this audit aspect.
Visit us on the web at www.gartlandlaw.com.
Did you know that you can solve all your IRS problems with just 3 easy steps? Hi, I'm Bernie Gartland. We have helped thousands of people with our 3-part problem-solving process. We analyze your situation, whether big or small, break it down to 3 parts, apply our process to it. This proven process has worked for others and it will work for you. Let us help you put control back in your life and have that control give you a future with just 3 easy steps. No more sleepless nights. Hey everybody, Bernie Gartland. Welcome back. The name of the program is Taxes, the IRS and You. Each week we're here giving you information that you need that's going to help you in your life and any problems you may have with the IRS or even in life general. We like to use our services here to show you how to get control back in your life and have that control give you a future. Gartland Law does tax problem solving, tax preparation, bankruptcy, and tax bankruptcy. And I know that a lot of you do not know that tax is going to be discharged in bankruptcy, but they can. So today we're talking with Brian Bauer, who is a CFO of American Tax Centers. What American Tax Centers does is all your tax preparation, all your business needs, because you help out setting up QuickBooks for people. No charge either. You don't even charge to help people set up the QuickBooks.
Nope.
And we give business advice, the combination between Gartland Law and American Tax Centers. We are here to help especially the small business persons. Now, we were talking about CP 2000. And if the folks have known me since, I've been here since 1991, and I have had a radio show since 1994, and now we're here live on KMIR television. You know that I really focus in on tax problem solving. And I learned something back in the late 80s that there were over 31 million people that had not filed tax returns in several years.
Probably still the same number now.
I think it's more than that.
It hasn't changed.
And what happened was that I was in San Diego at the time, and I put a little ad in the paper, because at that time, being very naive in that field, I thought, well, with 6 months we'll cure up San Diego. Well, this is 2000 and what? And then this is we're still advertising, or you know. But I started doing these tax returns for people, and they'd give me the information, then I'd file a tax return. Every single one, I would get a CP 2000. And Brian explained to you a CP 2000 in very legalistic terms. I always say it's like, nice try.
Yeah.
You know, nice try.
We don't like your offer, here's ours.
He says, where are you coming from with these numbers, okay? And what happened is in 1988, I met the district director, Michael Quinn, wonderful gentleman. I met him at a tax seminar. What was scary, I introduced myself to him, and he said, yeah, you're the attorney down in San Diego. I said, whoa,
we know
wait a minute. And I told him what my dilemma was. And he told me how to get the information from the Internal Revenue Service to match what they have.
Right.
And so now when we at American Tax Centers and Gartland Law, if we're going to do your tax returns for you and you haven't filed in 3, 4, 5, 10 years, and we see 5 to 10 to 12 people a week that have not filed in those many years,
right,
we will not do your tax returns for you unless we send for and analyze the information from the IRS, Franchise Tax Board. It's going to tell us what they know about you, what they're doing to you, what they're going to do to you, and how much they have on record of you earning. So that's how I got involved in what I have gotten involved in the tax problem solving. But you know and I know audits are up, okay? So when somebody comes in and they have that notice from the IRS, first of all, I know it's self-serving, but I tell them, don't represent yourself, okay?
Right.
And I
It's the
mean
worst
it.
thing you can do.
I think it's the worst thing you can do,
absolutely
because you don't know the law, you don't know the facts. There's a case called Cohen Rule. There's a Cohen Rule that nobody knows about that we know about. So when you get the notice and you see who the auditor is, you know most of the auditors down there anyway, and you have a good rapport with them in terms of they deal with you a little bit differently than they would deal with somebody that wasn't an auditor of the state of California, because they know that you know how to make
Present
things
the
happen.
documentation.
Right, present the documents correctly.
In the manner that they like to see it.
So when you interview with a client, what do you get across to the client of what he needs to do for you to make the auditor from the IRS's case a little bit easier for them?
Well, the first thing I do is I always ask them to provide all the supporting documentation for the items on the CP 2000 that they're saying they have that they didn't include on the tax return. Then I also take their tax return and go line by line and say, how did you get this number? What's the documentation? Right. one of the first things I always ask for is the bank statements, because a lot of times the auditors won't ask for that. On a letter, the notice that you're being audited, they'll ask for general stuff. They'll say you need to have documentation to prove your deductions.
Right.
But usually they always ask for the bank statements after they're out here, because they want to see that all your sales have been reported. They hardly ever ask for that up front. It's almost like they use it as a surprise. Oh, by the way, let's see your bank statements.
Yeah.
So basically, I want to do an audit of that tax return before the auditor comes in. And a lot of times I may disclose errors, and we bring that to the attention of the auditor. Look, we audited this guy's return. He did make some mistakes here. They weren't intentional. He didn't know what he was doing.
Right.
These are the areas that we see.
Right.
Here's all the documentation and support for the areas that you've asked for. Everything's fine. We just have these few areas over here. Here's all the documentation. You go ahead and look through it. If you have any questions, just ask me.
And I'm going to reveal, because you're doing more of the audits now than I am doing now. But when you weren't here, I did all the audits since the 80s all the way through.
Right.
And one of the things I used to do is I used to call the auditor up and say, "Hi, my name is Bernie Gartland. I am now representing the client. I will send you my power of attorney that the client has signed. Tell me what you need from me so I can help you close your case." And the reason I said it that way, tell me what you need from me so I know how to help you close your case. I always felt that was a positive
very
communication,
positive.
Because most of the auditors are used to representatives calling up and just giving them grief. Okay?
Well, I know as an auditor, one of the things that used to always frustrate me and would put me in a bad frame and a bias toward that person was before I even get out there, I would get stalled. Oh, let's put it off. Let's put it off. Or I'd ask for documentation, and it would be stretched out just forever. And that doesn't put the auditor in a good frame of mind. The last person you want to irritate is the auditor. So it's best just to say, let them know up front, whatever you want, we'll get.
Right.
And meet the deadlines they give you. If the auditor says, hey, you have a week, even if you can't get the stuff in a week, you at least need to call them back and say, we're working on it. I didn't forget about it. I know the deadline's whatever.
Right.
We're working on the stuff.
Right. And the thing is that you as a representative on this side now, I never lied to an auditor, and I never sandbagged them.
Right. You don't want to do that.
And maybe we didn't divulge everything that wasn't asked.
Well,
but,
if the auditor doesn't ask for it, you don't have to give it to them.
You're right. Just never, ever. I'm telling you folks out there, whether you represent yourself or you go to somebody, never, ever, ever lie to an auditor.
No,
never.
Not a good idea.
Because once you lie to an auditor, they're going to dig deeper, and it may end up with a referral to criminal. And if criminal rejects it, you can always get this civil fraud penalty, which impacts on bankruptcy. Now, in a few moments, we're going to talk about the practical applications, because with you being on board now, being an auditor with the state for 20 years, we now have shifted the methodology, not mythology, but methodology to how to handle the specific audits. And it's only because you have come on board with Gartland Law and American Tax Centers working together that we have been able to develop something that I think is absolutely phenomenal. And I don't think too many other firms out there have the same thing that we have here. And I will go into that after we have our second commercial. So folks, Bernie Gartland, name of the program is Taxes, the IRS and You. We're here every single week to try to give you information that otherwise you wouldn't know. And right now you are getting the benefit of Brian Bauer, CFO of American Tax Centers, who was a senior auditor with the state of California for 20 years. And he's bringing in tax preparation and audit expertise to the firm. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Bernie will be right back with more tax solutions.
If these four areas are controlling your life, let me show you how through either a Chapter 7 bankruptcy or a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, we can put control back in your life and have that control give you a future. Call me today for a free consultation. Facing bankruptcy have led many people to believe it was the end of the line, when in fact it was their doorway to a new beginning. Hi, I'm Bernie Gartland. For a full explanation of what a Chapter 7 or a Chapter 13 bankruptcy is, call me today for a free consultation. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We're with Brian Bauer, who is one of our panel members from week to week, and also the CFO of American Tax Centers. His role with American Tax Centers is running the whole organization. Kimberly is a staff assistant who basically is a contact person for American Tax Centers. And if you want to get in touch with Brian, all you do is call 760-345-1500, ask for Kimberly, and Kimberly will give you everything you need to know about Brian and set up appointments. Once you start working with us, all the information goes to Kimberly, so that it eventually ends up on Brian's desk. Right. And we're talking about his audits from the IRS, and we've got to a point where I want to now tell the folks to embellish a little bit what we said on the last segment. That because you came on board and you had the auditor's mind. Now remember something, I never knew how to do audits. Right. I went in to get my master's degree in tax and all these other schools and everything, but I didn't have a frame of reference on how to do audits. I just, okay, oh, you want that, or you want this, you want that, okay, oh, you want this, good, there you go. Right. But since you have come on board, and we've been working together for over a year and a half now, outside of being an auditor, is that we've developed a strategy of you working with the client and the information from the client, right, to put together what you would put together as an auditor. Right. For what reason?
Well, it makes it easier for the auditor that's doing the audit for the IRS, because if you can make things easier for them and less time consuming, they appreciate that, and it's easier for them to follow. So like most people, let's say they're auditing cost of goods sold figure or your sales figure. Most people are going to come in and go, here's my bank statements. And the auditor's going to have to sit down and for over a couple hours, look through everything, schedule everything out, tally everything up, then reconcile it to what was reported. I do that before they even come in. Right. I schedule everything out, whatever category it is, whether it's sales, cost of goods sold, supplies, legal, whatever. I schedule it out, I have all the backup behind it, and I stick it on a schedule that they would prepare themselves if they were doing the audit. So they come in, the schedules are there with the backup behind it, they look at it and they go, all right, they verify maybe a couple invoices to make sure everything's listed on there, and they go, okay, that's fine, they move it to the side. Instead of just giving them a stack of stuff and going, here, look through it. When you do that, they look through every single thing. They'll look through every, you could have 500 invoices there. Right. They'll look through all 500. Right. If you schedule them out, they may pull 15 of them and make sure they're on that schedule, make sure all the information's correct, and they go, okay, I sampled those. They look like you're recording everything, and push it aside, done.
Right. And this, by the way, this is where credibility comes into play. Is that if you establish your credibility, that in each audit that you have, that the tally sheet is accurate. Right. You haven't played a silly game.
You haven't monkeyed with it.
And I think that I told you once, I can't remember the young lady's name, but she sat right where you're sitting right now, and you were on this side of the table because you were doing an audit with her. And for some reason, you went back into your office, and I sat down just to say hello and have contact with her. And she told me, she said, I am so happy to do audits with your firm. And I said, well, thank you. She wasn't talking to me. And she said, because I know when I sit across the table from Brian that he is going to put things together, and I trust him because he's always established that trust. And I said, do you really take that in consideration when you have somebody on the other side of the table that puts things together as you want them put together, and that you trust the integrity of the person? She says, absolutely. Right. As a matter of fact, I think in that particular audit, we did very well. We did very well, right?
Bernie.
Right. And I think that the client was very satisfied with it. The interesting thing is that the audits, and by the way, the small business segment of the Internal Revenue Service is now starting to increase their audits on small businesses, because they believe that the sole proprietorships and the small businesses are hiding money. Right. And that's why, and folks, you can take this for what it's worth. If you're a sole proprietor, you should not be doing your own tax return, because as soon as they see Schedule C sole proprietor and you're self-prepared, you have now gone to the top of the list for an audit.
Right. And it's not that they think that everyone's hiding money. It's the fact that if it's a sole proprietorship and you're doing your own books and records, it's a little bit more sophisticated and involved, and people make mistakes.
Ryan,
and you shouldn't be doing them.
Ryan,
yes.
They think they're hiding money. Okay. I had a client I represented about 5 years ago, and he got so angry with me because I told him the truth. He had a lady tax preparer prepare a tax return, and it showed $77,000 of gross income and $35,000 or $40,000 of deductions.
Right.
And the IRS asked for his bank statements. He didn't want to give them over, and I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, because my deposits will show $330,000 of income."
That goes back to me telling you that they're going to always ask for the bank statements.
They're going to ask for the bank statements, and I said to him, "You have to turn it over." And that's when he got angry with me. He says, "Well, no, because then they'll know that I put more money in there." And I say, "Yeah, I know." So the key is you do tax preparation.
Right.
You do business consulting.
Right.
In conjunction with Gartland Law. We do tax problem solving all over the place. The key to handling an audit is not to get yourself in a position that you're going to be audited.
Well, that's the best preventative method, is to properly fill out tax returns, properly keep a good set of books and records, and hire professional, competent people to do your returns for you so that you don't get audited in the first place.
And just like that little group up in Banning that's being indicted right now, ladies and gentlemen, if you are an employee and all of a sudden your tax preparer says that you can take special deduction for money out of your pocket to promote your employer, it's called a 2106, and that's what they were doing. They were giving everybody phony deductions. And what happens is there's a system that goes up there. There's a system that goes up there that they monitor electronically the different areas. And once they see that something is being done in this area over and over and over again, the tax preparer, the tax company gets audited, they get all their books and records, and everybody gets audited.
Yep.
You need to go to a professional company like American Tax Centers to get your tax returns done correctly to avoid an audit. And if you do get audited and you're from another company, for instance, because most of our clients don't get audited because not much, almost all of the clients don't get audited. But if you have an audit, I once again suggest, I know this is self-serving, but I know how he works. I know the rapport he has with the Internal Revenue Service, and I know that he thinks like an auditor, and he sits there and puts together a package that will be presented to the auditor, and they will recognize that he has done his job. And by the way, if there is something that you cannot cover up,
we come forth and we tell the auditor. And a lot of times that can get penalties waived.
And that gets the penalties waived. So anyway, if you need to talk to Brian Bauer, 760-345-1500, set up an appointment. And he's a regular on our panel. So this is Bernie Gartland. Name of the program is Taxes, the IRS, and You. We say goodbye to you now until next week.